This is a Hunter Channel 245 bilge keel yacht, and we are going to reapply the antifoul. The old antifoul has been taken off by wet abrasion and the keel has been ground back. So the plan is to apply light primer to the keel, and then we're going to prime the whole hull using underwater primer, and then we're going to use Mille NCT antifoul on top. And on the prop, we're going to try out the Hempel Silic One propeller kit, which has had some great reviews, so we're going to apply that to the propeller. This is all the equipment we need to carry out the job. Starting with light primer, underwater primer, Mille NCT high performance self-polishing antifoul, the correct thinners for each paint. We've got a 4-inch roller set for application of light primer to the keel, and we have a 7-inch roller set for application of top coat and the primer to the hull. It's also important to have your self-protection equipment like overalls, mask, gloves and goggles. We've also got masking tape, fine line tape for the waterline, and above it we've got 3M masking tape. And then finally onto the prop we've got a Silic One propeller kit. So we're also going to apply light primer to the rudder. It takes a bit of battering, so we want a nice primer barrier coat on the as a first coat on the rudder, and I'm going to mask it off using fine line tape followed by 3M masking tape. The fine line tape just stops the paint from leaching up underneath the tape, which gives you a really nice crisp line. fine line tape is around the watermark, and we're just going to go above it with the 3M masking tape. Stop it. So the light primer, we need to mix in a 2-to-1 ratio. Once it's mixed, you have a pot life of around 6 hours at 20 degrees. Overcoating interval at 10 degrees, which is pretty much where we are today, you're looking at 8 hours, and if it's 20 degrees, you're halving that down to 4 hours. And the first coat we're going to put on is going to be thinned down by 20%. So we've mixed the 2-part epoxy with the thinners. We're just stirring to make sure it's fully mixed, and you'll notice that there's, well, you won't see, but there's plenty of little bubbles in there, so we need to leave it for a couple of minutes just to let those bubbles come out, and then we can apply to the keel. So the metal part of the hull, the P bracket and the prop, we're going to coat the prop with Silic One, and the P bracket we're going to give a coat of light primer, then underwater primer, then anti-foul. But this is going to have Silic One for both of them. We're going to give them a first coat of light primer, thinned down to 20%. I'm going to use a brush to apply it because the roller is just not practical. So we've given the bilge keel a coat of light primer, thinned down to 20%, and now we're going to leave it, the temperature's about 10-11 degrees, we're going to leave it 8 hours, at least 8 hours, and then we're going to give it a second coat. So we've now prepared the keel, the bilge keels with light primer. I had 5 coats of light primer, first coat thinned down by 20%. And we've done the P bracket, the shaft and the rudder all with light primer, and now we're going to use Hempel's underwater primer to prime the hull and overcoat the keels and the rudder and the P bracket. And thinning for this, for cleaning brushes, it's thinner #1, and we're going to make a start. So as with every paint, you really need to give it a good stir before using it. So stir it for 3 or 4 minutes, and then leave it to let the bubbles come out of the paint. And we're going to use a 7-inch roller and tray to apply this, because otherwise we'll be here all day using a 4-inch. So we've got the whole hole to do, so a 7-inch roller will make things much quicker. So it's been a couple of hours since we put the light primer on, and when you apply underwater primer on top of it, this must be a bit tacky, so you get good adhesion between the primer undercoat and the light primer.
Cool.
Okay, so today's the day we're going to put the top coat anti-foul on. We've put 2 coats of underwater primer on. If you're going over bare GRP, you really need 2 coats. If you're just adding a tie coat to existing anti-foul, then 1 coat's sufficient. But because we went back to bare GRP on the hull, we've used 2 coats. And we're going to apply the Hempel's high performance self-polishing Mille NCT. We're going to put 2 coats on. It's a nice warm day today, we don't need to thin it, but for cleaning tools we've got Hempel's number 3 thinner. Hempel's number 3 thinner. We've got to mix the paint well, so we've got some paint stirrers. We've got a paintbrush for getting to those places we can't get to with a roller. A 7-inch roller set and a couple of spare rollers, and then personal protection. We've got overalls, goggles, a mask and some gloves. So with any anti-foul you really need to give it a good mix, because it separates it as it's sat on the shelf, so you've got to mix it for a couple of minutes. Using this paint stirrer I'm going to give it a mix, and you'll see it's very thin on the top and very thick on the bottom. So I've been mixing now for a couple of minutes and we've got a good consistency, and I'm happy that we're ready to go. So we've primed the propeller and the prop shaft with Hempel's Light Primer. It's had 2 coats. The first was thinned by 20% thinners, and the second neat. The second coat was applied 3 hours ago, and now we're going to use the Silic One propeller kit to coat with, first of all, a tie coat, and then 8 hours later we're going to use the silicon based Silic One Top Coat. Now, rather than using a biocide and a copper-based anti-foul, this uses silicon, which is a nice slippery surface that growth finds it difficult to attach to. So we're going to try this out on the propeller. Okay, I've thoroughly mixed the tie coat, and it's a nice yellow colour, and I'm going to apply it with a brush because it's easier than a roller to apply to the propeller. So now we've got 1 coat of tie coat on. We have to wait 8 hours because it's around 20 degrees, and we're going to put the top coat of Silic One on top. So we let the tie coat, the Silic One tie coat, dry for 8 hours, and now we're going to apply the Silic One top coat. Okay, so now's the time we're going to peel off the tape, and the reason we use the fine line tape is it gives a nice clean line without too much leaching underneath the tape. So the boat is about to be launched. We've taken the tape off. Just to recap what we've done to it, the boat was wet abraded, and the hull and keels were taken back, and we've given the keels 5 coats of light primer, and the hull and the keels have then had underwater primer, Hempel's underwater primer, and the top coat is Hempel's Mille NCT, and that's had 3 coats of Mille NCT. And then coming back down to the prop, the prop and the drive shaft have been given Silic One treatment, so they've been taken back, sanded, wet abraded back, and they've had light primer So 4 coats of light primer. They've then had the Silic One Top Coat and the Silic One Top Coat. So all that's ready to go back in the water.